What up, everybody? Good Sunday morning to all of you. Welcome to The Sweat, presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook. I am your host, Emerson Latzia. I am surrounded by three gentlemen. DraftKings contributor Steve Buchanan, DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow, VSiN's Josh Applebaum. We're going to get after it here. Before we jump in to best bets, fellas, for the Week 2 slate, let's go ahead and take a gander, shall we?
We shall.
How everything shook out in Week 1 for bettors. Let's go. Punch up the graphic, baby. Home teams, 9-7, against the spread. Jules, pretty hot stuff. 7 underdogs of at least 5 points covering. And if you're a fan of unders, which I know occasionally you are.
Not really.
Oh my God, there's the graphic right there. 11 of 16 games going under. So Week 1 most definitely tickled your fancy if you're that kind of guy. You guys have a podcast. I think under is in that, right? Reasonable odds, over, under. All right, as for this week, let's talk best bets. Jules, where are you going?
I mean, the Unreasonable Odds podcast is the one you're referring to. We'll at least get you to plug it
I
properly.
teed you up on that.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, all NFL season. Best bets. We're going to a total. Steve did very well last week. Congratulations on your hit on the over in the Eagles-Lions game.
You were the only one whose best bet did not hit last week. Josh, you're good because you didn't give one, so you didn't lose.
I mean, I had quite a lead on Steven Reed last year, so I figured I would give him a head start. This way, make it interesting. So, we're going over 48.5 in Washington at Detroit this week. I think that total had a lot more to do with the Detroit side of things in that game. They have a good offense. The offensive line kind of holds them down. DeAndre Swift in there. Goff slinging it to St. Brown. Some of the other guys, they can score. What they can't do is play defense. And what Washington showed us in Week 1, albeit against a Jaguars team that is never very good, Emerson, They put some points on the board. They were throwing the ball when they were up late with Carson Wentz. He got along pretty well with his receivers. Antonio Gibson, who kind of fell backwards into that starting job, looked pretty good in his role as the starting running back. And Detroit is terrible defending the run. So I think one way or another, we're going to see a lot of points in this game. I lean to Detroit bouncing back and getting the win, but I think that we're going to see this one get well into the 50s.
Josh, what do you think here? Because Detroit looks to have the offense to send this game over. I'll give Jules that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one, guys. And this was also a line move that really jumped out to me. You know, you look at this total on this game, I think it opened somewhere around like 45-ish. It's all the way up to 48, 48 and a half. So it's kind of difficult sometimes to bet a bad number. You really wanted to target this one earlier in the week. But to me, the Lions are a team that if they're a dog, I'll look to take the points. And in these games where they score a lot, they give up a lot, I'm with Jules. I'd lean over here.
I mean, depending on which version of Wentz shows up, the Commanders could help or hurt you here in this situation.
And to be fair, Wentz wasn't all that terrible in Week 1. Like, kind of
4 touchdown passes against America's team.
He was nice, but like Josh said, like this is a number that was at 45 at one point, but I still like the number here at 45. I mean, you really have to look ahead at the look-ahead line if you're going to get that 45.5. But this was at 49.5 earlier in the week, too. So you're getting a little bit of value on there at 48.5. But to be fair, I would probably play this up to 49.5. So if you're getting it at 48.5, I think it's a good number.
Real quick, ticket count almost even. 57% on the over, 43 on the under, but 86% of the handle on the over.
Yep. All right, cool. What's your best bet today?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Dolphins here, going up against the Ravens, getting them at plus 3.5. You look at Baltimore, home favorites last year. They were 2-4 against the spread. This was not a spot that they performed particularly well in. That secondary is so banged up coming into this game, and that's kind of really where that really caught my eye. They lost Kyle Fuller in Week 1. He's going to be missing the rest of the season. Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey coming into this game as questionable. Now you have this Miami offense. We were wondering how this was going to look. How are they going to use Tyreek Hill? He had 4 targets last week of over 20 yards, caught 2 of them, had a drop in 1 of them, so he could have actually potentially had 3. Jalen Waddle caught 4 of 5 targets for 69 yards, and then Miami can really beat Baltimore in the interior, get some pressure on Lamar Jackson. I think this is going to be a great spot for the Dolphins. I'm surprised at 3.5 underdogs in this one, so give me Miami at plus 3.5.
I mean, Jules, when it comes to putting your money down, wouldn't you want to take the proven quarterback over Tua?
Yeah, this game's just more of a stay away for me. I hope it comes through for Steve. But yeah, he makes good points why Miami should be able to move the ball. But at the same time, Baltimore showed out pretty well, and they're going to be able to score some points. So I don't have as much of a take in this one. I think the number's just about right.
Okay, Josh, for your best bet, you're looking at the team the Dolphins knocked off last week. What you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Patriots here on the money line, guys. Number one, I think week 2, the important thing here, it's overreaction week. So whatever you did in week 1, the public only has a 1-game sample size. If you look good and covered, they're going to play you today. If you look poor, you didn't cover, you got blown out, they want nothing to do with you. But to me, this is the fishiest line on the board today, guys. The Patriots do not look good in Miami. They haven't looked good there in a while, but really their offense didn't look great. Who's calling the plays? A lot of questions with New England right now. Then you go to Pittsburgh, who had a huge win there on the road at the Bengals. You know, they got lucky with some missed kicks, but, you know, pulled it out in the end. But this is so fishy to me based on the opener and where it's moved. The Patriots opened as a 1.5-point favorite. Why is New England favored if it seems like they played so bad in week 1 and you're getting Pittsburgh at home with points? It seems like an auto bet. But this is critical, guys. The public is all over the Steelers, about 75% of bets. But the line didn't go to the Steelers. It went further to New England, -1.5 now up to -3. I don't really like laying a 3 now. It's a key number. You missed the 2.5 or lower. So I'm going to pay a little more juice. Give me the money line here around -155 New England.
All right, Bukes, if you want to make a money line wager on either team, it kind of feels like you're chancing a lot just because both teams look so bad in week 1.
Yeah, and then obviously the loss of TJ Watt is huge for the Steelers, and getting pressure on Mac Jones has been the key to beating this team. So without them, that's going to be a key component that they're missing. So I would probably side with the Patriots, but I have to admit I'm not crazy about either team in this match.
All right, gentlemen, well done. Jules, the only man, again, on this panel whose best bet did not hit last week.
Correct.
Steve and Reed,
Real laughing
great
matter.
success. Great success. All right, coming up, Bucs are favored on the road against New Orleans. How cautious should you be betting on Brady down in the Bayou? These guys will tell us what trends, injuries, and storylines they are sweating ahead of kickoff. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and this week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in free bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code SWEAT when you sign up. Okay, back here on your screen, everybody, it is the Sweat presented by the DK Sportsbook. I'm Emerson Lotzi. We got Julian Edlow and Steve Buchanan standing by to tell us what they're sweating. Look at them. They are so moist. So like trends, injuries, and storylines, they're giving some extra thought to before placing their bets today. So here's a trend for you, Steve.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, not only 0-4 straight up, but 0-4 against the spread versus the Saints in the regular season since he has joined Tampa Bay. Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting trend, too, when you think of all the success that Tom Brady has had throughout his career against basically every other team in the National Football League. And then you kind of look at this Buccaneers team coming in today. coming in pretty banged up. Julio Jones questionable in this game. He was being used so well in week 1 there. No Chris Godwin in this one, so there's a good bevy of targets that are going to be up for grabs. Does that mean it goes to Mike Evans or does it go to Russell Gage? I'm not too crazy about this Buccaneers team coming into today, so I'm probably staying away from this game overall because I do think the Saints look pretty good in week 1 against the Falcons. Obviously not the toughest team. Relative to the matchup, I didn't think they looked terrible in that game. I did like what I saw from Jameis Winston. I think that was the biggest part too. This is a secondary you can beat in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so it's probably Saints or nothing for me, but I can't say I'm crazy about this game.
Stay away game for me, and the Saints are going to be the sharp side going against Brady. What Emerson didn't mention is that Brady did, destroy the Saints in a postseason game when it mattered most. But
I'm sorry.
Early in the season, week 2. This is kind of Brady and Belichick type of preseason time. Not going to treat it as seriously. And the Bucs are very dinged up, so I could see this one really going either way. I'm sure Brady would love to have some success against New Orleans, but is it going to matter in the long run if they drop a week 2 game? No, this game probably means much more to the home team than the traveling Bucs.
Jules, hook me up with a long-term injury that impacts the future market. What do you think? Because last week, for example, Dak, there's Watt, Elijah Mitchell, to name a few. Hey, those guys on the screen.
There they are. Look, all of them, I would say the top 2 primarily really significant, and Prescott is the obvious one. I hate to go to the obvious place, but that offense looked awful with him in there. They score 3 points. Cooper Rush comes in. They don't get much better. They can't get CeeDee Lamb the ball. 11 targets, 2 receptions for CeeDee Lamb. That's a guy you need to get the ball with what you lost at receiver this season. So I think the Bengals are a team. They just lost the turnover battle 5-0 in Pittsburgh and had 2 kicks in the air to win that game. Now they come into Dallas. They're going to be a team that people are all over, and I think it does wind up being the right side. And then Dallas is just going to skid. Last time Dak got hurt long-term in 2020, the Cowboys lost 6 of their next 7 games, average margin of loss by 18.5 points.
Yeah, remember they said originally, too, this week, 6 to 8 weeks, but then Jerry Jones came out and said, I don't know, maybe 4, Steve.
Yeah, again, I think that the Dak one is the biggest one that you have to worry about here because what that's going to do for the Cowboys. They went from the second best odds to win the division. Now they have the worst odds to win the division. And that's obviously, it's the Eagles to take. They're minus 155 favorites on DraftKings Sportsbook. A very overwhelming number from what we saw before the season here, too. I've seen a little bit about Mitchell on this point here, but I feel like the 49ers just constantly have running back issues to begin with. Like, it was like a 3-man tandem, whatever you want to call it, last year. And
tandem would be 2.
Yeah,
but
whatever. 3 people.
Just say 3-headed monster.
A carousel.
3-headed monster.
A carousel of running backs. So I just feel like, yes, obviously Mitchell is a loss here, but they have so many guys on there that I think can get back in there and take it over.
Steve, and Emerson are actually all riding a tandem bicycle home after the show.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. You're sitting on the handlebar, Steve. Tandem's only 2.
That's how it works.
Only 2 seats. What about this week's injury report, Jules? What are you sweating?
I would be pretty sweaty if I'm the Colts. You got Michael Pittman out and limited options there at receiver. So I think that means a lot of unheard ofs, especially with Alec Pierce, the rookie, getting hurt. A lot of unheard ofs are going to have to step in for Indy if they're going to get a win in Jacksonville, which, as you know, Emerson, has been a problem for them these last few years.
It's true. Bute, you don't want to answer that? Anything you're sweating?
Yeah, I think George Kittle is big for the 49ers. Another bad weather game for the 49ers. Trey Lance is just really getting a bad run of weather to start the season here, but without obviously his best receiver here, so that means they have to rely on Deebo Samuel to run the ball a little bit more, because obviously what we saw from Trey Lance wasn't great last week. I think this is a really big spot where if they lose George Kittle, it could be 0-2 for the 49ers in this one.
So I will say this, Jules, you're right. The Colts are looking for the first win in Jacksonville since 2014. However, Matt Ryan, 4-0 against the Jags, including a couple in Jags. Also, in 4 career games against Jacksonville, Jonathan Taylor has absolutely consumed America's team. He's averaged nearly 120 yards a game against them in his career. So take us through some of JT's props right now.
It connects with the receiver issues. You've got Jonathan Taylor rushing prop set at 102.5 yards. He's going against a Jacksonville team that can't stop the run. He had 31 carries last week in a game that Indy was down 20-3. I don't see how the game script doesn't set up there for him to have a big day.
And not only that, too, he was very involved in the receiving game last week, even with Hines active. If you looked at that game score, you would think that Hines was inactive in this one. So I don't think that they're going to be a much issue this time around, but even if they do, Taylor very involved in the passing game. That's a big boost for him as well.
All right, you two hang out. We got to take a break right now. We're just getting started here on the Sweat, presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook. So coming up, former Bills lineman and the man calling Monday Night Football between Buffalo and Tennessee, Ross Tucker, will join us on the other side of this break. All right, everyone, welcome back to The Sweat, presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook. Take a look at your screen. Sound the alarm, because you have been warned, people. The Bengals, Seahawks, Steelers, Bucks, and Bears, oh my, have attracted the most ATS bets on the DK Sportsbook ahead of week 2. To ride or fade the public, that is the question. By the way, Seahawks and Bears, underdogs of more than a touchdown today. Let's welcome in right now, podcaster, broadcaster, former NFL lineman, a fan of kickers, but not kicking, Ross Tucker. Good morning, dude. How are you?
Emerson, I'm great, man. Happy Football Sunday.
Yeah, right back at you, dude. So clearly week 1 delivered in the disappointment department. You had the Denver debacle. You had the Bengals failing to close out Pittsburgh. Oh, what else? Oh, yeah, the reigning champs just get pounded by the Bills. And Green Bay looked lost without Davante Adams here. Which team should you be worried about the most if you're holding a championship futures ticket on one of them? So we're talking, again, Rams, Bengals, Packers, or Broncos.
For me, it's the Packers. You know, I do think the other teams will bounce back. The Packers' concerns, though, that they showed in that game is exactly what they were coming into the year. I mean, they've got young receivers without Davante Adams. We don't know whether or not those young guys will come around in time for the Packers to be a Super Bowl contender. And the offensive line is still an issue. Until David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins are both out on the field playing well, I will be skeptical. And the other thing, too, Emerson, is Aaron Rodgers just seemed off, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was taking hits and shots and sacks that he normally does not take. I still think they'll have a solid season, but when the concerns we had before the season manifest themselves in the opener, yeah, I'm going to be concerned.
Well, you know, we also got to keep in mind he didn't look super hot in week 1 last year and ended up going on and winning an MVP. Also, Matt LaFleur, 6-0 against Chicago in his Green Bay career. Let's go from disappointments, though, to teams that have that dog in them, Ross. 7 underdogs of at least 5 points covered the spread in week 1, with the Steelers, Giants, Bears, and Seahawks all winning outright. Of those 4 victorious teams, who surprised you so much that you're second-guessing how you bet them moving forward?
Yeah, by the way, on the Even Money podcast, I had both the Steelers as well as the Giants.
Hell
so
yeah.
I feel really good about that. So
Good.
that's not my answer. That's
Okay,
not my
great.
answer for those teams. Steelers did it with defense. Giants, I thought, would win the game. We won't talk about what I thought in the Broncos-Seahawks game on the Broncos side, but it is the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks are the ones that surprised me because I like the Broncos. I laid the points in that game. Not only the fact that they won the game and that they played well, but Geno Smith looked good. I mean, Geno Smith was doing Russell Wilson-esque things. So I thought the Broncos were going to pound the Seahawks. So the fact that the Seahawks won, and I know that Broncos had the fumbles on the goal line and the Nathaniel Hackett decisions. I get it. They won the game. Geno Smith played well. That was my biggest surprise.
Seahawks are 9-point dogs in San Fran today. Which spread are you most confident in betting in week 2?
You know, I really like the Dolphins getting to 3.5, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
The Ravens are still beat up, man. I mean, J.K. Dobbins won't play. Ronnie Stanley's still beat up. Last week, they lost Kyle Fuller and Jawan James. Plus, last year, I called that Ravens-Dolphins game on the radio, and the Ravens were powerless to stop the Dolphins' all-out blitz. Now, I'm sure they've worked on it all week. I'm sure they think they have a good plan. But they were never able to adjust last year and make any plays against the Dolphins defense. You're going to give me 3.5? I'm going to take them.
Did you see Lamar tweeting like the Pete Weber quote too? Who do you think you are? I am.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that. That's an amazing quote by a bowler or by anybody. I don't know why Lamar did that. Obviously, he's pretty confident in how today's going to go. I'm not for him. First of all, I love getting 3.5 points.
Yeah.
And I think the Dolphins have a great chance to win the game outright. So give me the Dolphins getting the 3.5. Thank you.
Okay, and you're also going to be on the call for Titans-Bills Monday night. We know how much you love your former team in Buffalo, and all you had to do was watch the game last week against the Rams. You can see why they are Super Bowl favorites here, Ross. However, what is a weakness on Buffalo's team that you expect the Titans to attack, which could possibly help them cover the spread as a big underdog?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet if it is a weakness, but I can tell you, being a former teammate with Mike Vrabel, exactly what I think the Titans are going to try to do tomorrow night. Shorten the game. I think they are going to try to pound Derrick Henry at the Buffalo Bills. The longer the Titans' offense is on the field, the more Josh Allen and that Bills offense is off the field. This is going to be an old school. I think they're going to try to make it as low scoring, as boring as they possibly can. Try to shorten the game. So I promise you, we are going to find out whether or not the Bills' run defense is a weakness.
All right, dude. I know you do a lot of NFL games, you do all the college stuff, but for people who actually need more of you, apparently those are real people. Where can they find all of your podcasting goodness?
Well, of course, check me out on social media. That's the easiest, at Ross Tucker NFL. But I will have a new Ross Tucker football podcast breaking down every game bright and early tomorrow morning. Tuesday, we'll already on the Even Money podcast be placing all of our bets for week 3. That's how we roll.
Appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week, dude. Coming up here on The Sweat, though, we got Steve, Julian, and Josh. They are going to penetrate the DK Sportsbook here, people, looking for anything and everything to help you make some big money this week. Sunday Specials is coming your way after this 120-second break. All right, back on your television, it is The Sweat presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Emerson Latzia. We got Steve, Jules, and Josh here wrapping it up with our Sunday special. So your favorite parlays, promos, or other fun bets that you can find on the DK Sportsbook this week. Josh, you're up first. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Sunday night game, Chicago and the Green Bay Packers here. One thing that jumped out to me, you can get a price here, plus 275 for both Jones and Dillon to go over 200 combined rushing and receiving yards, combined with the fact that Green Bay will win the game. So that's plus 275. Green Bay to win the game. Right now they're minus 450 on the money line, but they open as around a 10-point favorite. They could be creeping up to minus 10.5. That's interesting because public's all over Chicago on that one, so could be some smart money laying the points there. Rodgers 22-5 straight up in his career against Chicago. He's won 6 straight. He quote-unquote owns them. He's 9-1 his last 10. So let's get the win. And then a couple things. Jones, Dillon, they combined for 167 rushing and receiving last week. Didn't score much there against the Vikings. I expect them to perform much better this time around at home. You get up big, you chew up the clock. I could see a lot of runs late. Give me that combination over 200. Packers win plus 275.
It'll be a little more difficult to own them now without Davante Adams, who was part of your Sunday special, Jules.
Very nice transition, Emerson. I'm going to that Vegas-Arizona game, and I think we're going to see some yardage through the air. Davante Adams had a $141 in his debut. Goes against this Cardinals defense that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs absolutely torched last week. So I like Adams to get the bulk of it here, but you combine him with Hollywood Brown on the Arizona side, college teammate of Kyler Murray. We need these two guys to eclipse 200 receiving yards at plus 350. I think they get there.
All right, we got 1 minute to go in the show, Steven.
Yeah, so Myles Garrett to record a sack, and then Nick Chubb to go at least 100 rushing yards, getting that at plus 350. Garrett already had 2 sacks last week and credited with 4 hurries. Nick Chubb, obviously already over 100 rushing yards in that first game. Just didn't face much on the run last week, only 15 rush attempts against them, but Chubb is in an elite matchup here against the Jets. I love this one here at plus 350. It was you getting a sack here, and then Chubb to go over 100 rushing yards.
And the other ones had the kicker, right? The rookie kicker who had 4 field goals last week, I think, for the Browns.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a 4th round pick. Oh, I'm just saying, like, maybe lean more towards the kicking game there in Cleveland. All right, that's how you do what you guys just did. Appreciate it. That's the first half hour of our show. We're going to keep it going over on our DK social channels. So that's Twitter, that's Twitch, that's YouTube. We're talking tons of fantasy football in the closing half hour. Back here on your TVs next Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, bring it in. Come on, Samir, a little closer. Open your eyes and lend us a hear. An ear? A hear? Hear with your ears. It's good to have you here. The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. So if you stuck with us through the first half hour, thank you very much for not leaving us. And whether you're watching us on your televisions in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in New York, or if you're watching us on the social channels, we appreciate you. We're going to kick off the back half of this hour program by dipping our toes into the DFS bin here. But before I bring in Jeff, before I bring in Steve, I want to remind you, $20 you can get inside the Millie Maker today in the DraftKings lobby. More than $4 million in prizes are up for grabs. $1 million going to first place. I know right now you have fantasy questions. You're confused. You're lost. Well, DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan and Jeff Ulrich, they have answers. They're here to find you and to lead you on your way. All right, guys, we're price checking DFS salaries here. Jeff Ulrich, under center. You're going right back to the well despite an ugly week 1 performance by your quarterback.
I mean, look, I'm going with Kyler Murray. You could say it was ugly. I mean, I don't know. Was Kyler playing defense, Emerson, last week? I don't think he was. Kyler actually came through for fantasy managers with a little bit of a garbage time action. You know what? We like that. We like quarterbacks who stick it out, who got it out on the field, and they say, I'm going to get that last touchdown for us. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer this week with the Raiders. I still like the Raiders on the side. Arizona Cardinals defense is terrible, but we love quarterbacks attached to bad defenses. Blake Bortles will tell you that. Kyler Murray. I'm sorry, I had to drop the Blake Bortles reference in there. It's not a bad thing for fantasy. Look, you know, don't get your underwear in a notch here, but Kyler Murray, the 5th highest designed rush totals in terms of all quarterbacks in week 1. The Cardinals were designing rushing plays for him. He didn't scramble much because the game was so out of hand. I think this game is going to be a lot closer, and I think that's great for Kyler Murray's rushing potential. And then we've got Zach Ertz back as well, just to give him a little bit of a hand. He just needs a little bit of help in the passing game. He's going to get that. We really have a defense in the Raiders we shouldn't be too scared of. I really like Kyler Murray's upside. I know everyone's looking at the Raiders this week. Don't be afraid to roster Kyler Murray and then come back with some Raiders in the other spots.
All right, you're staying in that game for your quarterback.
Yeah, you know, Jeff was saying everyone's looking at the Raiders. Well, you should be looking at the Raiders. Jeff said it perfectly. Was Kyler Murray on defense?
I feel like Jeff made your case for you.
Right, exactly. Like that's why you should be taking Derek Carr, because that defense was so absolutely putrid last week. I mean, Cardinals allowed 5 touchdowns, 360 yards, and a 76% completion rate to Patrick Mahomes last week. Derek Carr is going to be facing almost no pressure under center today, and that is where he's been his best. 73% completion rate when he's working with a clean pocket last year. 8 yards per attempt, 19 of his 24 touchdowns allowed in that scenario. I think Derek Carr should be able to absolutely carve up this secondary. He's got Renfro, he's got Waller, he's got that guy Devontae Adams on his side too as well. This is a great spot for Derek Carr. It's going to be a bit of a chalky one, 6,200, but I think he's in a great spot here.
I mean, he has top 6 like QB1 potential here, and all of his key receivers are, I believe, also worthy of some daily targets today on this slate. So, third time here, you're staying in this game for your running back, Jeff Ulrich.
Hey, I mean, this game, look, the city of Las Vegas and Arizona need to sponsor the show at the end of this one. Yes, Josh Jacobs. Everyone's talking about Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, and Steve's right. Like, I mean, everyone on the Raiders is in good shape this week, and we could potentially see like 4 or 5 players really like return value. I think that's a legit possibility. Josh Jacobs at 5,800, though, seems to be the least talked about player for the Raiders in this game. And I get it. Like his route participation, his passing participation, it just wasn't good last week. And that's what we want in full PPR. But guess what? He also averaged 5.8 yards per carry. He was a beast after contact. Josh Jacobs forced 8 missed tackles. Like he ran the ball extremely well. And let's not just talk about how bad the Cardinals secondary was, because they allowed like a pretty weak rushing attack in the Chiefs to look really good. 4.7 yards per carry against last week. I think Josh Jacobs will see more work in the passing game. Brandon Bolden, the Patriots' love child of Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick, he's out. He's doubtful. Like he's probably not even going to play. He was a big part of the passing game for the Raiders last week. I think Jacobs sees a lot more field. I think he just gets more rush attempts because the Raiders are playing such a bad defense. I think Josh Jacobs has a very good chance at hitting his ceiling and posting like a multi-touchdown game here. Got to ride with him. He's a great leverage play, too, in big fields off of Devontae Adams, who's going to be extremely popular this week.
Jeff, it's kind of crazy, especially for a close game last week. The Raiders only ran the ball 23% of their plays. But this week, you're going to Denver because, well, Melvin Gordon's demise and Javonte Williams' stranglehold here, like over Denver's backfield, I felt like certainly exaggerated after what we saw last week.
And I don't think that really should come as a surprise. I mean, they brought Melvin Gordon back on a one-year contract. They're going to use him, but if they're going to be doing this split, and Javonte Williams is going to be the guy who's catching out of the backfield, I will take that any time of the week. 6,400 tonight, going up against his Texans team. I mean, you could argue that Williams was like their top receiver last week. He had 12 targets, 11 receptions, and 65 yards. 29 of the 38 snaps that he played came on passing plays, while Gordon was only on the field for 13 of them. So if you're going to give me Javonte Williams at 6,400 against his Texans team, I think that's a great spot here for him. I mean, they couldn't contain Jonathan Taylor, who was running, who was catching a number of passes out of the backfield too as well. But I like Denver in this game. They're huge favorites on this slate, but I don't think that takes away from Williams at 6,400 because they're going to get him involved in these quick checkdowns here. And if he's going to be seeing that type of volume, I don't expect him to get double-digit targets this time around. But if he's getting 7 or 8 targets per game, that's huge in this PPR format. So give me Williams at 6,400.
All right, at wide receiver, you're going with a rookie, but that's probably because the Lions secondary is bad enough that you're confident he could go off again.
Yeah, there's a ton of wide receivers that you can pay up for this week, but if you want a little bit of value, Jahan Dotson over with the Commanders at 3,400 is my guy here. Only 3 catches last week, but he turned that into 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. Is he going to have that type of game this week? Probably not, but he was heavily featured in this game, played on 88% of their snaps. That was second only behind Terry McLaurin and ahead of Curtis Samuel. And then he's got a good matchup in coverage against Warrior. Majority of the time in coverage, he allowed 5 catches on 8 targets for 69 yards last week against the Eagles. He an average of 14.2 yards per reception last year. Dotson is their downfield threat. That's obviously one of the reasons they brought him on. At 3,400 this week, at that price point, he's too much of a value to pass up.
Jeff, I like your wide receiver pick here. Obviously, it's Christian Kirk for the Jaguars, but it's a sneaky tough spot against Kenny Moore's coverage, though.
Kenny Moore was really bad in the slot last week. He was actually, he kind of got torched. If you look at Chris Moore, he went 3 for 3 in terms of targets, and he actually was open for another touchdown. Just the yardage he gave up, the opposing passing percentage when he was down in the slot. The other thing is, like, Kenny Moore's banged up. I'm not even sure what his status is for this game. So if Kenny Moore was bad, we'll take his backup. And the other thing is Christian Kirk in the slot. I mean, this is a much tougher matchup than Chris Moore from the Houston Texans as well. Christian Kirk pushing for like a 34% team target share last week from Trevor Lawrence, 12 targets. Maybe the connection rate wasn't quite what we want to see, but I think that will shore up. And look, the Colts secondary, like I said, I think this is one of the most overrated units in the league right now. Stephon Gilmore kind of over the hill. He got banged up by, or just, he just got beat by Brandon Cooks a lot last week. And I just mentioned Kenny Moore in the slot. I think Christian Kirk is in for a big week here. I think this is a very good matchup. We saw what the Jags wanted to do last week. They want to throw the ball. They want to drop Trevor Lawrence back. Trevor Lawrence had like no designed rush plays. They're going to throw the ball here, and they're going to use Christian Kirk. I think at 5,700, you've got to keep riding Christian Kirk. This is a massive team target share. This is an elite, just in terms of like usage percentage from Christian Kirk. I'm not sure if this is going to dip that much. At 5,700, I think you're getting extreme value. You take the Jags. They don't really have that good a defense. Sorry, Emerson. They're probably going to be behind at some point. So 5,700, I think this is too cheap. I think you'll see Kirk push in the 6K range by midseason.
All right, from a former Cardinal to a current one at tight end. Need you quick on this one, Jeff, but you've already name dropped Zach Ertz once.
We've talked about the Cardinals at length. Zach Ertz is back. He's going to get like 10 targets in this game because that's what there's no one else to throw to. It's pretty much that simple. I hate to make it that simple, but it's that simple. Zach Ertz, 4,500. He says he's healthy. I believe him. He's good value right now.
All right, you like Tyler Higbee?
Yeah, I mean, Higbee getting 11 targets last week was just absurd. Granted, he only made that into 5 catches for just over 40 yards, but if he's going to be getting that type of volume at 4,200, I like him a lot going against the Falcons. Look, Allen Robinson is going to get more involved in this offense. Is it here in week 2? It could be, but at 4,200 for Higbee, getting the amount of volume that he's getting, I like him a lot this week against the Falcons.
All right, Jeff, we're going to reward your 5 minutes of work with a 5-minute break here, but we'll talk
he deserves it.
Yeah, he really does.
I deserved it, too.
We're going to talk some primetime picks with you coming up because we have 2 Monday Night Football games tomorrow night on top of Sunday Night Football today. Let's toss it over right now, though, to Julian Edlow and Josh Applebaum for a little algebra lesson, question mark?
Yeah, I guess that's what we're going to do over here. I don't know if I can spell algebra, but we're going to do some transitive property over here. Keyword prop. Josh is going to throw some of his favorite prop bets at me from this Sunday NFL slate. I am going to translate them to kind of a DFS type of spin. So we'll get the best of both worlds here. Josh, I know Jeff already mentioned, we're talking heavy Vegas Cardinals in this show. I think we're going to go there plenty. Why don't you throw some at me?
Yeah, we are. I'm going to go back to this game, Vegas Cardinals. And, Julian, one thing I think when you're betting DFS, you just kind of have that fantasy mentality. But I like to kind of combine fantasy with conventional betting. So if I'm going to bet a lot of props, if I want to take some overs, I'm going to go to the games with the highest totals on the board. And this is really the game with the highest total. It opened around 50.5. Some books might be going up to 51. So they're expecting a ton of points in this one. And I know it's a little bit chalky here, Julian, but I'm going to look towards some of these best players on the Raiders to have a really good game. You look at last week when you see the defense of Arizona, they gave up 44 points against Kansas City. Mahomes threw for 360. Travis Kelce torched this team. They have a bunch of injuries in the secondary. So I'm going to think Josh McDaniels is really salivating with this matchup offensively to go against this Arizona Cards team. Give me Carr over 279.5. He threw for 295 last week. Waller over 48.5, 79 last week. And then Devontae Adams over 92.5. He had 141 last week. So injuries, good offense. I'm going to look at a lot of these guys offensively for the Raiders to go over.
All right, well, I like it. Obviously, we saw what Kansas City did to this defense last week. And you see the salary there, $6,200. This is a cheaper quarterback slate overall in week 2, given some of the guys that we have in primetime games, some of the bigger names. But a Kyler Murray on the other side of the matchup is $7,500 in this game, the most expensive quarterback on the main slate board. I think this is a great way to save some money, probably be popular in cash games if you're looking to play double-ups. Only $6,200 for Carr against this defense with a guy like Devontae Adams now here. He's going to be popular, but I like the prop to get there. Mahomes went well over this number. I think that the Raiders didn't run the ball much last week, so throwing the ball, I like Carr to get to that number, and I think Carr is a really good play in cash games in terms of DFS.
I'm with you, Julian. And just from a betting perspective, too, a lot of movements on the Raiders in this game. They opened -2.5. They're all the way up to -5.5. I'm interested, do we get to the key number of 6? In which case, you're probably going to get some buyback there on Arizona +6. But a lot of offense, the highest total. Flip it the other way, Julian. If I'm going to look at some unders in DFS, I want a low total game, like maybe 45 or less.
So going over to Waller here, I know you mentioned him on his yardage, only 48.5. I think a lot of eyes on Devontae Adams after that Week 1 game. He was targeted 17 times. He caught 10 of them for 141 yards and a touchdown. But Waller was the guy in this offense last year, and he has a very good relationship with a guy like Derek Carr. People are sleeping on him maybe a little bit here, and I think salary-wise, tight end is a position that's tough to fill, obviously. We don't have as many big names, so I think people can maybe go there as a pivot off of a Devontae Adams that is going to cost you significantly more. And in terms of the yardage, 48.5, that's pretty low going up against Arizona. And I know that Kansas City lost Tyreek Hill, but to go back to last week, Travis Kelce was the guy that burned that Arizona defense from the tight end position. So this is another guy. I know we're talking chalky overs in a high-scoring game with a large total, but 48.5 seems a little low, maybe a little bit of a Week 1 overreaction to the Devontae Adams addition.
I'm with you, Julian. And again, this is a guy that got his contract. You're worried about would he hold out. The new thing in the NFL is you kind of hold in, you show up, but you don't really practice. He got his money. Injuries, you always worry about with Waller, but he seems to be playing very well, so I'll take that over. Julian, one more for you I'll throw at you. Leonard Fournette. Tampa Bay is going to be down a lot of wide receivers in this game against the Saints. We saw some respected money hit the Saints. +3 down to 2.5. If you're looking at Fournette over 60.5 rushing yards, that's one I can get behind. Brady struggled, obviously, against the Saints in his career as a Buck. And now if you down your wide receivers, I think you run the ball a little bit more. He had a great game in Week 1, 127 rushing yards. And they gave up 120 to Cordero Patterson last week. So I would look toward Fournette also over 60.5 rush.
Yeah, if we want to take what we learned in Week 1, and again, you don't want to overreact to it too much, but it's hard to find a hole in this argument, the part of this play that doesn't work. You got the big game from Fournette. You got the matchup of a Saints defense that let up a lot of yardage to a back that I don't think any of us were expecting. And while sharp money is on the Saints, you've still got Tampa as a favorite in this game, which could mean a little bit more running the ball volume. Obviously was there for Fournette, and you go to the price tag on the DFS side of things at $6,700. A lot of people are going to pay up for your Jonathan Taylors, Saquon Barkley, even Antonio Gibson, who's a similar priced guy in that Detroit-Washington game that I gave out as my best bet, the over in that game earlier in the show. you can pivot off, you can pay down here. He makes sense, and you know what we like with running backs. The volume doesn't seem to be in question here. It's Fournette's job. He's going to get those touches. We just need the game script to kind of come together. And if the Saints wind up stumbling like they did against Atlanta, you could have a game where the Bucs are leading late and really giving it to Fournette there.
I'm with you, Julian. And again, if you're struggling here, Brady, we know as a Patriots fan who I was born and raised in Massachusetts, he struggles with the rush up the middle. If this is a situation where his wide receivers are out, he can't really lean on a lot of these guys. Julio Jones is expected to be out. Godwin's out. What are you going to do if you're Brady? Obviously, his favorite receiver is the open receiver, so he'll make do. Look at some of these other guys who will fill in these roles. But I think Fournette is someone that you can rely on. When you have a lot of guys out, this is one guy that you know and you trust, and I think Fournette can go over this number.
All right, that is the transitive property. Hopefully we helped you guys find some prop plays that you want to play this on this Sunday slate, or at least get some DFS guys into your lineup from these two games. Josh, thanks for those props, and we're going to send it back to Emerson over at the desk.
Indeed you are. Okay, so as promised, Jeff Ulrich will return with his primetime picks, talking Sunday Night Football, both Monday Night Football games tomorrow, plus what our analysts lessons learned from Week 1 right after this break. All right, back here on the Sweat presented by DraftKings, everybody. Jeff Ulrich, let's go. Let's rip through some primetime picks. Special week this week. We have not one but two Monday Night Football games. But let's start Sunday here, my dude. Let's start tonight. Your captain play for Bears and Packers. Who you got?
I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon. I mean, you look at this game, it's got a low point total, 41.5. A.J. Dillon, obviously, is very involved in the Packers offense. He split time with Aaron Jones, but one thing of note, I mean, it's pretty clear Matt LaFleur kind of prefers him in the red zone. He did take 3 red zone touches over Jones's 2. My prediction that A.J. Dillon probably going to push for the lead in touchdowns. I think touchdowns are going to be so valuable in this game for DFS just because of the low point total. Let's go with A.J. Dillon. He's got a very affordable salary, too. I think that's where the Packers are going to go in this game. They're projected to be ahead. That's going to be my captain.
Yeah, Packers backfield has very much become a two-headed monster there, and that's Dillon in the captain spot at 12-6. So, favorite bet from this one tonight. Where are you going on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, and again, I mean, we have a very concentrated game. Like, there's not a ton of players on the Bears that I'm going to be very bullish on. I think you can actually look to unders on guys like David Montgomery. But, I mean, if we like the Packers and the Packers have an insane ATS record, in these spots. Let's just take the -10 on the Green Bay Packers. They're 8-5 ATS in division games since 2020. They're 12-6 ATS as home favorites since 2020. They're 8-2 ATS against Chicago in their last 10 meetings. I think this line is just a little bit too small. I think if we were mid-season, this line would probably be 12.5, maybe even push to 13.5. Let's take the Packers -10. Let's take Aaron Jones for a prop over 29.5 rushing yards. I know they're in a time split. Aaron Jones's participation and just in the route tree, just as a receiver, was elite. I think you'll see him go over his receiving total as well.
All right, 2 games on Monday night, right? You have the Titans, you have the Bills, you have the Vikings, you have the Eagles. Let's combine both of these here. Who is your favorite DFS play tomorrow night?
Okay, I mean, look, the Titans, the Bills, that one's going to be tougher to see. I mean, who knows what the Titans are going to do? They're going to be throwing to their third tight end, most likely. Gabe Davis is out. That could make Isaiah McKenzie a very good DFS play in that game. But for a solid captain, let's go to Jalen Hurts. My man, this guy he's just a DFS slot machine at this point. Scramble rate, highest among all quarterbacks week 1. Designed rush rate, highest again. And he's improved as a passer with A.J. Brown on the outside. Guys, don't overthink this. Just play Jalen Hurts in your captain spot, first showdown. That game is going to be electric. It's going to be points. It's not going to be as hard to decipher. You're going to want to be going with the offensive players in that game. Jalen Hurts is easily the easiest guy to just sort of pin down. We know what we're going to get. Jalen Hurts got to be your captain in that game.
All right, what about favorite Monday Night Football bet? One of these spreads is not like the other. You got the Bills, a 10-point favorite at home, Eagles 2.5.
Yeah, look, Tennessee is a team I really don't love to bet against when they're big dogs, so I'm going to stay away from this Bills game. The Bills are the better team. If the Bills blow them out, would it shock me? But if Derrick Henry comes in and just rushes and the game's close or Tennessee pulls the upset, I wouldn't be that shocked. I like going to the player props in this Minnesota-Philly game. We talked about it earlier on the show. When you're looking to go over on props, you want games with high point totals. We've got a point total of over 50 in this Minnesota-Philly game, and I just talked about Jalen Hurts' rushing usage. It is elite. 49.5 rush yards? That's it. Go over on that. I mean, it's going to be a close game. The Minnesota offense is legit. Jalen Hurts is going to be out there running, scrambling. He's got an elite scramble rate. And then on the other side, let's combine it with Kirk Cousins, over 24.5 completions. Ooh. It's at plus 100 the last time I looked. This guy had 23 completions last week in a game. They were ahead the entire time. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan, Emerson, you know that, but he works the short pass game in an elite way. He's very good in that regard, and he's got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen to help him out. Kirk Cousins will go over 24.5 completions. I'm pretty sure about that. I love going over on both those props for the Philly and the Vikings game.
Jeff Ulrich, good seeing you. Your job here is done. Mine is not. Neither is Steve, Julian, or Josh's job, because right now, how smooth was that?
That was pretty good. A lot better than I expected.
I had low standards set for myself. Anywho,
I was banking on a trip.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Week 1 lessons, dude. So let's see what you learned in week 1 that'll help you and help the folks at home with your or their betting or building strategy for today's slate. So, Bukes, I want you to start us off here.
I think Brian Daboll makes this Giants team something that you can trust. Now,
he was fun, man. Did you see how fired up he was after that win? Had the big ballsy call, 2-point conversion call.
The Titans had a 91% win probability with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Giants were not only able to win that game, but they played for the win. They could have hit that field goal at the end to tie the game, go to overtime, try to win it there. Instead, they went for the 2-point conversion, beat the Titans in that game, came back from 13-point deficit. If that is the way the Giants are going to play, and obviously still a lot of pieces need to come together here. How is that offensive line going to be? How is Daniel Jones going to perform under pressure? Because that's obviously been something he needs to work on. Can he limit the turnovers? But from the coaching perspective, this is probably the best I felt about the Giants in, years now?
Yeah.
3 to 4 years at least. So I think even in a game like today with a close spread, I'd be willing to back the Giants in a spot, even though they're only at -2 against the Jaguars. So I think this is a great spot for the Giants moving forward if this is how they're going to play.
Yeah, because now Joe Judge is with your team, with the Pats, doing his thing. Saquon looked back.
That
Also,
too,
was one of those games last week that had some kicking issues because the Titans had a chance to win that thing and they did not. Josh, a lesson learned for you in week 1 that you're going to factor in this week.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback kind of off what Steve was saying. I think it's really important. Coaches, really important because Dayball's a guy, again, who was hired with a, great resume here with Alabama. Obviously worked with the Patriots, led Josh Allen to, being one of the best quarterbacks. OC there with the Bills. And I'm with Steve. One tweet that I saw is there's a belief in the locker room with the Giants now. When you go for 2 and you win that game, not only are you brave enough to make that call, but to execute it as well. So I'm with Steve on that one. It's a little intriguing to me, though. Carolina's getting some late money here. I did like the Giants all week. I moneyline the Giants. I'll stay with my original bet, but money is going here toward Carolina. Although Baker Mayfield, only 23-36 ATS in his career, 39%. So I'm believing in Dayball. I'm believing in the Giants. On the other end, guys, I'm going to kind of bet against Nathaniel Hackett. This guy proved to me in a primetime game that he's unprepared. Again, he doesn't know how to manage the clock. He's kicking it when he should go for it. To me, those mistakes could really, really hurt the Denver Broncos. So they're laying 10 at home to Houston today. It was 10.5 at one point, down to 10. I'll take the points there with Houston, and I'm not going to lay big numbers with Hackett. I really don't have much faith in him.
I kind of respect his move. He was trying to save the timeouts for this week, so he had to even more.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
What'd you learn? It was funny on the Manning cast on ESPN. Like Peyton Manning's sitting there on TV trying to call the timeout, and Hackett's like, "Nope, not doing it."
Apparently that wasn't the plan.
But like a lot of people maybe overreacting to that storyline. I don't know if that's a game people are overreacting to because it was just straight up the wrong call. But you're saying don't overreact to week 1 results.
Yeah, some of these week 1 results, like we have teams that are 0-1 against 1-0 teams that are favored by double digits. Why is that? Because we don't want to overreact to what happened in week 1. Like we talked about on the show, all these public tickets, almost 3/4 of the tickets coming in on the Bears, yet the Packers keep growing as favorites. And, with Josh, I think that Denver's probably going to get off to a pretty strong start in that game. I don't necessarily love the double digits, but just the calls by Denver, kind of inexcusable, but the 2 fumbles on the 1-yard line, that's not going to happen again. The yardage tells us that, Denver easily could have blown out in that game, and it was some bad luck highlighted by a poor decision at the end of the game. But if they don't get that bad luck earlier in the game, that decision never has to be made. So I think that a lot of these spots, we just don't want to think too much about what happened in week 1 and remember why some of these teams are such big favorites.
I mean, Pete Carroll knows all too well about screwing up on the 1-yard line, on the goal line.
I heard that rumor.
Yeah, I bet you certainly did. All right, that'll do it for this week 2 edition of The Sweat, everybody. We made it. Congratulations. We will be back here next Sunday starting at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. We're also here every weekday, same time, talking all sports. So check us out tomorrow morning on the DraftKings Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube pages. Enjoy your Sunday.
Getting really good.